Last week's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was described by the Secretary-General of the United States, Antonio Guterres, as a code red for humanity and a death knell for coal and fossil fuels. The report showed that we're now on course to pass the 1.5 degree Celsius marker in a matter of years, if not decades. If the 1.5 degree target is to be met, CO2 needs to be cut by 2/3 in the next 12 years. We were bemused to see headlines after the publication of the report talking about how the situation is grim, but that there are solutions available. The issue is not a lack of solutions to the crisis we face. We've known for years now that the situation is grim, but that we do have options. The issue here is the absence of a political will to take radical action on climate, the political will to make decisions that will be difficult, but ones that will help us meet the challenge that faces us. And that challenge doesn't just lie ahead, we are in the midst of it. I would have hoped that the IPCC's report will serve as a final warning for the government to get its head out of the sand on climate change. It's outrageous, but not at all surprising that we're here today discussing the government trying to buy its way out of having to make real, meaningful change. Because that's exactly what this agreement is. The government spending €2.9 million to buy its way out of a problem. That's €2.9 million that could have gone towards helping our farmers change the way they use their land, €2.9 million that could have gone towards public transport, such as towards the Labour Party's €9 climate ticket and clean travel infrastructure, €2.9 million that could have gone towards investment in cleaner energy. But instead, it's going towards getting this government out of dodge for missing its own targets. Time and time again, this government has proven that it's not giving the climate crisis the attention it warrants. You'd be fooled into thinking they were by their rhetoric, a government that's strong on rhetoric but weak on delivery. There's no doubt that the Climate Action Plan in 2023 is an ambitious document and amongst the most ambitious in the world. But that's all well and good. But without the political will to meet that ambition, the Climate Action Plan amounts to nothing but lip service and rhetoric. And this proposal is just another indication that the government lacks that political will and is lacking in its delivery. Climate action cannot be just about ambitions, it has to be about outcomes. And the outcomes so far have been dismal. It would appear that elements of this government have simply given up on reaching their targets. We know, thanks to documents released under the Freedom of Information Act, that the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, for example, have conceded that it will not meet its methane emission reduction targets. We also know from reports that the ambition contained in the 2019 Climate Action Plan to tighten scrutiny regarding pension fund investment in fossil fuels appears to have been quietly rolled back by the Department of Social Protection. Indeed, there is no such ambition included in more recent climate action plans. The Taoiseach has recently admitted that Ireland are climate laggards. We're amongst the highest emitters in Europe, 60% above the EU average. We're now at a point where, after 3 years of this government, our emissions are higher than they were pre-COVID. The government have blamed that on the reopening of our economy, but that entirely misses the point. If anything, the reopening of our economy in a post-COVID world presented an opportunity to do things differently. The government has failed to grasp that opportunity. We in the Labour Party have offered a way to radically transform the way we do transport, for example by proposing our €9 a month climate ticket for unlimited access to all public transport. This would take around 23,000 cars off our road and have a genuine and meaningful impact on reducing our emissions. Not only has the government failed to take this proposal on board, but the Minister for the Environment has dismissed making public transport more accessible, saying it would lead to, quote, more unnecessary journeys. That is irresponsible to the point that it is offensive. I just want to say one final thing on the IPCC's report. The report paints a bleak picture, but the fact of the matter is that the situation we now find ourselves in is even bleaker. I was reading the minutes of the negotiations between different governments on the language of the report, and one thing that stood out was the pervasive influence of petrostates, who sought to have their interests protected to the greatest extent possible. If we are serious about tackling climate change globally, we need to stand up to these petrostates and their lobbyists. The influence they had on proceedings at COP27 made headlines, and now they've gotten their paws into this report too. We previously called for Ireland to be a leading green state at the vanguard of climate action, and I reiterate that call now. But we need to get our own house in order if we are to do so. The bottom line is this, however. Ireland will never be a leading green state under this government because they simply refuse to give the climate crisis the attention it warrants and to deliver where necessary. This proposal before us today amounts to nothing more than the government trying to buy its way out of a problem and shirk its responsibilities. When it comes to climate action, they're all bark and no bite. Thank you.